Hello everyone, I'm Tony Southcott.
And I'm Komette. And welcome to the newest series here at Human Echoes that we're really excited about. It's called Remake versus Original. Just like the name suggests, it's where we watch an original film and then we compare it to its modern counterpart.
And we're starting out with Suspiria, which was a 1977 Dario Argento movie that got remade in 2018. We're going to take a deeper look at this, but it's interesting because this one actually has some critical heat behind it. People seem to like it, and that's kind of rare for remakes.
Yeah. Since this is a new series, we'd love to hear what you think and if you have any suggestions at all. We are going to try to make this as spoiler-free as possible, but given the nature of this video, we can't really promise anything. But let's go watch some movies.
Yeah. All right, so we just got through both of the Suspirias, which, if you're going to do this, buckle up. That remake is long.
It is very long. It clocked in at about 2 hours and 36 minutes.
Yeah, something like that. So, like, it's just a long one. That first one, 90 minutes. So, like, it's manageable, although, like, it's a little bit older, so you got to deal with some interesting pacing type things.
Yeah.
But let's get into these movies.
Yeah, and if anybody has ideas for questions or comparing ideas for the original versus remake, please comment below. We really, really, really want to hear what you think about this. I think we're excited. We want you to be excited and be a part of it and everything. Also, we respond to all comments, so if you've got anything that's about the movies, full on, just throw it in there and we'll talk about it. And I did say this in the intro, but this is a spoiler alert. We're going to try to steer away from it. This is not the idea of telling you about the movies. We're just comparing the two.
Yeah, and we are going to talk a little bit specifically about the ends at the end of this video.
Yeah, and we'll put a big warning tag and everything like that. Okay, so the first thing that I have written down is the easiest one. How do they compare as two films?
Yeah, as far as two films go, you watch Suspiria, and that's full on, like, the classic.
So let's say classic versus remake, because it'll be confusing when you say
classic Suspiria. Like, whenever you've got, like, this sort of piece of artwork from Dario Argento, like that full giallo movement that we've covered a little bit on here before, it's very pretty. It holds up fairly well. The soundtrack is great.
It is an art movement. I think that's what a lot of those giallo films are, is that very stylistic.
Yes.
Very, very stylistic.
Yeah,
beautiful.
very, like, oddly beautiful for how pulpy the plots are.
Yes, very much so. And then the remake, I think it holds true to the spirit of the original, and the way that they did that was not via the story. I personally think it was via the cinematography.
Yeah, like, they had the same names. They had some, like, a similar time period in Germany. They had a lot of things that were in name honoring it, and especially, like what you said with the style, a lot of the camera angles. It did not have the color. This was almost, like, intentionally drab comparative to the old one. Like,
I think that has to do with the time period, in my opinion.
Well, you're in, like, a very, very depressed Berlin.
West Berlin?
Yeah, because East Berlin is the communist side.
The Berlin Wall is up in...
Yeah, they're, like, right at the Berlin Wall. You see a lot of that, like, the divisiveness that's happening, like, terrorism, all sorts of things happening in Germany at the time. And it's a different feel for the movie. Like, whenever you're talking about, like, Suspiria, the first one, you know something's up, you know things aren't right, but they don't deliberately full-on say, like, witches and this is a coven and all this stuff until later in the movie. And it's pretty early on, like, maybe within 30 minutes whenever you start seeing witches. In the first, I think, 5 minutes, you actually hear the term witches. Everything's brought up. Like, it's just forced right out there. They're not trying to hide it.
For me, the first movie had a sense of panic in it. The way that the women were responding to what was happening, I think, was very panic-inducing. Whereas I think the second one, I think the word that kept on coming up for him and I was unsettling.
Yes, very unsettling.
Very unsettling.
Like, there were times where it actually bordered on, like, hereditary levels of unsettling.
Yeah.
And it's partially because of great performances by certain actors, and it's partially because they just had a script that was tense and horror fraught and everything. I don't think you could say either of these movies are, like, scary or terrifying in any ways. Like, Suspiria had or the classic Suspiria had a few more jump scares.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think this had many jump scares.
No, but it was very grotesque.
Yes, they're like you've probably seen it in the trailers whenever like they've got the woman in the mirrored room. Things like that are absolutely horrific.
Yeah, it is very. They used grotesque imagery to portray, I think, fear and their like I said, the unsettling nature that they had.
Both of them had some mystery elements, but I think that you're looking at a difference between this manic got to get out of the house or this very, very patient, slow burn that's happening in the new Suspiria. And we keep talking about how long it is, and the biggest detriment to the movie. Like, it's one of those things where I enjoyed it, but it was starting to feel like work around like the 2 hour and 10 minute mark.
It was long. I think that there is a subplot that they could have cut completely. I really don't think that it was necessary. Them having in it, we even talked about the pros and cons of getting rid of the subplot, and I just think that they could have conveyed the story that they were trying to without this.
To me it almost felt like a way to force Tilda Swinton's star to go higher because she was also playing this character. She played three different characters. And I felt like that
two of her characters could have been cut.
Yeah.
Two of them could have been cut.
Two of them. Or the other one could have been half as much screen time. Like, he could have been there for detail work. He could have been helping. He could have been doing some things. But we didn't need to know his entire backstory since 1940.
And him walking.
Yeah, there's a lot of him walking. And it's a patient movie. And I can appreciate what they were trying to do. It's just a little bit long, especially when you've got so many subtitles. Yeah. Which, like, a lot of this movie is in German. You hear some French, you hear some other languages. There's no problem with that. I actually thought that it added some life to it because there's so many browns and dark tones, and it's winter, and it's just a nasty time of year.
Whereas the first one is Choice is completely dubbed over because it is a giallo film, and traditionally, we've talked about this, is that each of the actors speak in their native language, and then they dub over whatever they need to do. That was kind of a disconnect with the first one. It's definitely stylistically two giallo films, and the fact that they didn't do that with this, the new one is nice.
Yeah, like they would have been forcing it too much. Yeah. Also, I think all of these actors probably just speak
English, yeah, and then that's how it is nowadays. I do want to move on and say that I don't think that this is the same story.
No.
I think they took the characters and the setting and the tone of the first Suspiria, but it is not the same story.
Yeah, it's a rebrand. It's a different pizza franchise.
Yeah.
You're still getting pizza, but it's different.
I was going to try to compare. It's the Crazy Carl's to the Pizza Hut.
Yeah. It's like it's probably more like two different artisanal places.
Yeah, I was going to say that doesn't really make sense. That little
obscure wine place that serves like flatbread pizzas versus like a place that just serves monster like Chicago style 5-pound deep dish stuff.
Yeah.
It's not to go too far on the pizza metaphor, but it's a different taste, a different flavor, same elements.
I do got to say that apart from it being really long, I did like the second one a bit more. That might just be because the first one is a bit dated, came out in 1977. The style of the acting is really over the top.
The melodrama and the script writing. You were commenting on that in the movie, like that the script for the second one is a lot more real.
It is a lot more real. The characters are a lot more real. I think the women are a lot more real, and that's just my own perspective.
It was very soap opera for the way the girls interacted.
The first one definitely was. The second one, I did enjoy the story. I thought that the ending was we weren't expecting it.
Yeah, like I had read that the ending is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I had heard nothing else.
And of course, we don't have our reaction camera for it because our camera died.
Yeah, it's the new camera is awesome, but we need a cable for it.
Yeah, we'll iron out that one. But so I think if I were to say which one is best, my opinion is that I liked the second one more. I wish there was maybe a different like, you know how there's the director's cut. I wish there was maybe a producer's cut or something, or
yeah, the 2-hour like made for America cut.
Which
I know there's a lot of film nerds out there that are scoffing at us for that, but I think if you watch this movie, you'll understand. Like,
I don't know. Sometimes cuts can be better. Like there's apparently a cut out for. Have you seen Passengers?
I have not.
With Chris Pratt?
Yeah.
So somebody we can cut this, but somebody put out a cut of the movie where instead of it showing, do you know the plot of it?
Yeah.
Instead of showing him waking up and then waiting and waking her up, it starts with her waking up.
Yeah.
And then learning. So it turns into a completely different tone, and it turns into a horror movie.
That's interesting.
It's really interesting. And so like cuts, I mean, that's why those people win awards.
Yeah, it's why like The Godfather, the original cut was going to be 4.5 hours. Oof. And the director's wife forced him to cut it down to about 3.
Yeah.
And like that made it a masterpiece instead of something that's super long, which you can actually go see the full 4.5 hours on HBO now, but I haven't brought myself to do it yet.
Anyways, we went off track there, but I think that if there was a different cut of this, then it would be a lot more appealing, and it, like he said, it's a chore. And I think that's where we're sitting at, but overall, we like it a bit better. Yeah. Or I like it a bit better. I can't speak.
Like, I think as a time capsule, like the original Suspiria is really fun. If I wanted to explain, like, this is what this era of horror was like, it's an Italian movie, it's like just cool stuff, I could show somebody Suspiria without worrying about judgment. Especially if we had a few beers and we're laughing at the soap opera side of it. Mm-hmm. With the new one, it's harder for me to tell somebody to sit down and watch it with me if they're not a hard horror fan. So, like, I liked the new one. I liked the old one. I think that as far as this series goes, this is going to be one of the more even-keeled where you could watch both. We're not going to have the ones where we're like, oh my god, I can't believe what they did to this movie.
Yeah.
You're not going to have that. You're going to have something that works.
Yep.
One of the things that was vastly different from the original to the new one is the level of like actual dance and involvement, because it seemed in the periphery that they were at a dance like a performance hall or like whatever the company was called. And in the second one, it's like hammered that you have to pay attention to the dance. Like, this is all symbolic. This is part of the ritual. This is bigger.
Symbolic's the perfect word for it.
Yeah.
Because we talked about how the progression of the dance goes throughout the film is that it starts with being like, yeah, okay, they're a dance studio, to the end of the, like, this is very much a ritual. This is very much like casting, because it is a coven. And I thought that they portrayed that really well. Where the original... That is
one thing where the newer one does a lot better, in my opinion, is making this coven feel like a living organization that is like conspiring to do things.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, you had that in the first one, but this one was just more convincing. It was more malicious in some ways. It was more interesting in others. And I think it was a lot more fleshed out than they're witches. Mm-hmm. So, like, they definitely... That is probably the biggest strength that this movie has, is that as a witch movie, it stands above most witch movies.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there was a lot of character development.
No, like you kind of they kept bringing up her childhood, but they never went that deep into it. Mm-hmm. Like, and that was kind of an interesting thing to me, is like they're going to spend so much time on the old man, but we're not going to see why this girl is like the blight of her mother's life and all this, like her only sin and all this. Like, it was just weird that they didn't cover that.
Cinematically, it was beautiful. I wish it would have, instead of holding true to the giallo with long zooms and cuts and everything, I wish they would have imported a little bit more of the color scheme.
Yeah, an improved color palette and a little bit of pacing are the main things with that one. Mm-hmm. As far as likes, we talked about the witches. We talked about, like, I liked the brutality of it. Like, there was a lot of parts where it's like it looked pretty authentic. Like for the newer movie, whenever you're talking about giallo stuff, it's always the fake red paint blood, and it never looks quite right. It's just very bright. But yeah, as far as likes for that, it's one of those where it just has the feel of a classic movie.
The thing that my favorite scene in the entire movie actually was one of the parts that we talked about that they should have cut. And we're going to click to the spoiler.
Yeah, this is where the spoilers start for a little bit.
So the scene with her and the old man. So we've already learned that she pretty much, Susie's character pretty much is a deity. She is the person that they worship in this coven. And she shows her awesome power by slaughtering a bunch of people. But she goes to the old man and she talks about the old man's wife and how the old man's wife ended up dying.
Yeah, because she's got sort of insight into that sort of death and everything else.
And it was a very, I think, beautiful scene. It was really well acted. I got a bit emotional about it because it was about this old man and his wife that he never really got.
He never got closure
on. I thought that was a very beautifully well done scene.
Yeah, and that was probably Dakota Johnson at her best. That was Tilda Swinton playing a man at her best. There's a lot of good things to like there. And previous to that, like the ending goes completely bonkers.
It does go bonkers, and you have no idea that it's going to be like this.
Like in the temple and everything. Like you kind of go down there, and it's like, oh, I kind of expected there to be a bunch of naked witches doing their thing. Like that makes sense for this sort of movie. And then
all hell breaks
something goes bad, and also the main villain in this is horrible.
Ugh.
She and I mean that in a good way. I mean, she is hard to look at.
Yeah.
And she was bad in the original one, but she didn't have much presence, and it was very quick. The original movie ended very quickly. Yeah. I was like, all right, I got 10 minutes left, and then it just like cascaded and it was done. Yeah. It was over. And it seemed a little bit too easy, a little bit too like
pretty.
A little bit too pretty and easy. There was cool stuff, but it wasn't like a fully formulated ending. This one, that chaos followed by that like soft, sweet, like denouement or whatever they want to call it, like the epilogue, worked really well for me.
It did, because it showed, I think, that for me, what it showed is the duality of the woman's character. You find out that she's this awesome, powerful person that will literally kill an entire room full of women, and then can just be gentle enough to sit down with the old man and talk about his deceased wife. It was really beautiful. I think they could have cut some stuff in between that was really unnecessary. I also think that they could have cut down some of the scenes that just dragged on a little bit.
Yeah, and that's basically what it comes down to. Is the original is awesome for being a classic older movie.
Very classic.
Both have pacing issues. Second one a little bit more so. But as far as remake versus original goes, I mostly approve of this remake. Like, I think they did a good job with it. They paid enough reverence to it. They followed enough beats but made it their own story. And I always think that whenever you take an original and remake it, you need to do something new with it. We were talking with the owner of Gorehound's Playground earlier about like the Psycho remake, where it's a scene for scene remake, and that doesn't do enough.
Doesn't bode well. So if I agree. If we were to choose remake versus original, I would choose the remake.
Yep, me too. And also, if you enjoyed this, please hit that sub button, hit that like button, leave a comment, or check us out on patreon.com/Human Echoes.
Yeah, we'll catch you next time, and please comment and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, give us some ideas.
Feedback.
Bye.